Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for an AMA Part 2 with the Avalanche team. We hosted Part 1 of this AMA about a month ago, but I feel like so much has happened in between. But before we get started, why don't we, have everyone introduce themselves for all the newer people coming in that might not be familiar with Avalanche. And I can start. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff, and I work on the community side on Okcoin.
This is Jason from Okcoin. I'm COO here. Excited to be here.
This is Hyder. I'm the CMO here at Okcoin. Very excited to get back with this crew and talk about all things Avax and Okcoin.
Hi, everyone. This is Emin Günsirer. I am the CEO of Avalanche and, the person behind much of the implementation of the Avalanche client with the Avalanche team here. And incredibly delighted to be here.
Hey everyone, Jay, VP of Marketing here from the Avalanche team as well. Excited to be here.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Massam. I'm the head of product at Avalanche. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for all the intros. And for everyone listening, if you have any questions you'd like us to ask the Avalanche team, feel free to reply to our latest AMA announcement tweet, and we might ask a few questions. And for everyone, last time we spoke in our part 1, we talked a little bit about, grant programs for developers, the Avalanche roadmap, Apricot, Blueberry. But again, for all the newer people coming in, Goon or anyone on the Avalanche team, could you tell us a little bit about what Avalanche is and kind of what makes it so unique?
Yeah, absolutely. In a nutshell, Avalanche is the latest and the most advanced blockchain platform. It is not specific to any use. We're not one of these one-trick ponies. We are fundamentally innovating at the very lowest levels. One of the most crucial things about the Avalanche system is that it uses a drastically different consensus protocol that actually scales. So whereas other people are trying to come up with blockchain protocols that could potentially scale, and they're doing all sorts of things. They're essentially they essentially fall into two tracks. They're either using proof of work, or they are using these academic protocols from about 20 years ago and trying to adopt them to blockchains. Avalanche is a new protocol. It is the most groundbreaking effort since the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper. It actually scales. It achieves consensus in far fewer number of messages. It accommodates more participants. It can handle incredible numbers of transactions per second. But most importantly, it's super fast. So that's one differentiating factor. It's simply, before Avalanche, everybody was just recycling old stuff. This is the latest, biggest step forward in the science of blockchains. Now, next big thing is that Avalanche has a different model for how to structure the blockchain system, in the sense that everyone else uses a single coin and a single network. Avalanche allows people to create multiple, what we call subnetworks, and in each subnetwork, it allows them to run their own virtual machines. This means that it's the most flexible system out there. This means that it can accommodate regional restrictions, regional compliance requirements, which makes it a perfect digital asset issuance platform. And the third and final thing that distinguishes us overall, I'm going to say some technical words, but really let me just break it up. The technical words are governance, blah, blah, blah. It's not governance. I've thought about this. I used to say governance as the third differentiator. It's not. It is a commitment to be community-oriented at every level. Whereas other people will make you a slave to algorithms, whereas other systems force things down on your throat that were decided by the developers umpteen years ago when the system was first initiated. Avalanche gives you, the users, all the power in the world. You can change things dynamically on Avalanche that you cannot on other systems. And at the same time as that, it also, from the ground up, has built into the ethos of its community, of its developers, of the entire system, a commitment to doing things right for the users. So every time we touch anything, we do it with a community-minded value system. So everything we've ever done, everything that we had a hand in developing code for, we try to make it such that there is no team allocation for some of the dApps we've built. We just give the coins to the community. There's no, essentially we are trying to make the community have as much power in our system as possible. So those are the three things. It's a scientific breakthrough. It has other additional features that make it flexible, and it's got these values that other people continually espouse. And then when you look at what they're saying underneath the covers, we've got unicorns and, there are coins that, push forward, unicorns and rainbows and so on. But underneath the covers, they're heating up the environment. Or you look at systems that are, supposedly decentralized. Underneath the covers, they're not. You're looking at systems that are community oriented. Underneath the covers, the team holds all the coins and so forth. Avalanche is not like that. So that's, I think, our biggest difference, and I hope I did it justice. It's a little hard to get across all the different points because there's so much new here.
Thanks, Gun. That's a very passionate a take on the community aspect of Avalanche, and I think we have seen that too on our side. But since we last met and chatted, what has happened? What's changed and what's new in the Avalanche ecosystem?
That's such a great question. There's going to be so much that changed that I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. But let's try and
give us the highlights.
Okay, I'll give you the highlights. So there's this big thing called Apricot that is a giant big change in how the Avalanche systems, especially the smart contract side, functions. And so this was a big change, and we broke it up into multiple pieces, and we've been making some incremental updates to the network to make it much more robust, much faster, and much easier to use for users. In so doing, we also plan to reduce the fees required for any individual. And remember that in Avalanche, in keeping with this community-minded approach, the fees are burned. They're not given to miners. They're not recycled, etc. They're just burned. That essentially means that people who hold Avax are benefiting from the activity on the chain. So we pioneered this. I don't know of any other L1 that was burning its fees before us. And now you're going to see Ethereum try to copy that with their EIP 1559, which is fantastic. Ethereum should take all the good things that it sees in other chains. We don't mind that at all. But again, yeah. So Apricot is coming out, and in the last month, I believe there was at least one code release towards Apricot completion. There's about to be, I think, one or two small code releases that bring us to the completion of Apricot. And so that's something that we're very excited about. At the end of that, we're going to have dynamic fees, and the fees should drop down drastically from where they are. And already they're at a very low point anyway, but they're going to come down even more for users. I want everybody to be able to experience and interact with DeFi. Everybody. Until now, DeFi has been a game of the civilized, whatever it is, the Western world. There are many people out there that just cannot afford the fees to interact with DeFi applications, with the dApps. And so that's one of the first things that I'm really excited about. It's partially done, and there's still a little bit more to come. But in the next month or so, we should see Apricot complete itself, complete the rollout, and we're going to be so thrilled to finish that up. So that's one. Two, we have a new bridge coming out. This new bridge uses fantastic new technology. I'm happy to go into details about how it works, but it is so easy to use. It's going to be the world's best trustless bridge. That is to say that the bridge itself, that you don't have to trust the bridge operator. There is no custodian for the funds that are being moved, and the bridge will allow the movement of any token from Ethereum to Avalanche initially, and then soon thereafter we plan to add support for other chains. So we want to add support, especially for EVM compatible chains. So we want to add support for BSC as well as others as time goes on. So that's number two. Number three, on the NFT front, we saw we saw a partnership with Tops. Now, let me say a few words about NFTs. Well, we should talk about NFTs separately, maybe. But NFTs are a big, big deal in my view, because at the moment we're seeing just maybe scratching the surface. A lot of people are experimenting with them. But if you extrapolate 5 years out, NFTs are going to be a big deal. Everybody will be replacing all those clunky things in their wallet with NFTs and their cell phone. Okay, so that's the world we're going to move to. Now, who's really pulling the lead in the NFT world? Well, I'll tell you who it is. It's a company called Tops. And Tops is headed by a CEO called Michael Eisner. And Eisner was the ex-CEO of Disney. So Tops has a lot of digital properties at their disposal. And they partnered with us. And about, I would say maybe 2 weeks ago, 10 days to 2 weeks ago, they did their first application with us, which was a very small application just to test the waters, just to see the software and so forth. They released something called Bazooka Joe, which is old whatever it is, cartoons and so forth, some artwork that they had essentially to test the waters. So that partnership with Tops is, I think, a very, very big deal. And I'm thrilled about what's to come out of that. So we're going to be moving forward with that. And we're very excited about how the Bazooka Joe application went out, and so that's one of the main things that happened in the last month. So I don't know, Jay, Nick, help me out with the things that I forgot, but there's quite a lot that happened in the last month, but those three would be the top big things that I would point out. Oh, there have been, of course, countless DeFi applications that have been released on our chain. There are many, many metrics. I should rattle off some of them. We're burning a lot of coins just constantly by virtue of the activity on the chain. We're thrilled about that. In terms of usage, Avalanche has so many users. I don't have metrics for you guys. So it's very hard to count, but it's a chain that's actually burning immense amounts of value because people are getting even more value out of having burned that thing. So if they're burning, let's say, 100,000 a day or a million a day or whatever it was, it changes according to whichever time frame you look at. As people burn that much, presumably they're getting far more than that out of those interactions. So activity is growing. User activity on all our channels is, of course, at an all-time high. That's been growing. And it's just so exciting to be here with some technology that any techie can appreciate. And with technology that actually brings value to people that people tend to use for actual economic work. But Jay and Nick, do you guys want to chime in and
Sure.
plug in the gaps where I left?
Yeah, I think I can bolster at least two of those points, and one of the main focuses, at least for product, and Nick can probably speak on it in a little bit, but also on the marketing and community side, is really minimizing the points of friction from the end-to-end experience, from all the way from getting the Avalanche token and any of the Avalanche-based assets to whatever applications you want to be using, whether that be in DeFi or something else on the NFT side. And to echo Gun's last 2 points that he mentioned, the NFT Tops experience with Bazooka Joe first, we've all used it, and the really incredible part about it is the front end mimics that of a Web 2 experience. So it doesn't look like the typical Web 3 experience that you're used to, and underlying the actual marketplace is Avalanche. That's where the settlement and the minting and the trading occurs. And that part is very, very cool, something that is understated, I think, in the space. Everyone tries to bring crypto up front and center. I think we all tend to agree that it does tend to confuse the people who are new to the space, and I think we're trying to trend towards that to maximize user experience. The second part with UX really would pertain to what Gun was talking about with the Avalanche Bridge. And with the Avalanche Bridge, we've all also have used it internally, and we've been pushing through its limits, really making sure that it's dead simple to use. So once that comes out, we really do believe that people will have a great experience. And then like Gun was talking about with the value props, it's extremely cheap to use and also extremely fast. And I'll hand the mic off to Nick, and I think he can expand on what we've been talking about as well.
Yeah, I mean, both those points are totally accurate. We really started with the bridge from scratch and looked at all the key components that we thought we would need in order to make it really usable and a big success. So, we started with security. and the bridge must be audited. It must be built with security first technologies, and Goon talked about that a little bit with its trustless nature. It has to be cost effective, and with the apricot releases that are coming up, those, the costs are already low. They're going to get much lower in the very near future. It has to be fast. It has to be transparent, so the user has to know what's happening with their transaction at any given point. It should be intuitive. So, we know that crypto native users are familiar with bridges, but we wanted to really build a bridge that a no-coiner could use, that somebody who is just approaching crypto for the first time would feel comfortable with the experience. And then we want it to be ecosystem supportive. So, in the bridge process, we've also introduced an ecosystem page, which really highlights what you can do when you reach the other side of the bridge. As Goon also mentioned, it's multi-chain, so it's built with multi-chain support in mind, and we'll be rolling out several chains in the upcoming months. And then lastly, there's some incentives around it so that when you use the bridge, you can receive Avax on the other side as an airdrop, and you'll be able to have the ability to go transact immediately. So you can go to the ecosystem, you can look through the directory of projects, you can filter down by what you're interested in, you can go directly to them and start to transact. So all these aspects have been built into the bridge to really provide what we think is an unparalleled experience in kind of this new technology.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack here. But first off, I want to congratulate the Ava team on all this progress, especially the TOPS partnership. I think that's huge, guys, and huge kudos for you guys to pull it off from a BD standpoint and also engineering standpoint. It's clear that you guys are building such a robust ecosystem. I have a few questions that I would love for you guys to answer for the community. First is, when we think about the ecosystem, there's DeFi, there's NFTs, what have you. How does the Ava team think about identity? That's one question. And second question I have is, imagine there are retail investors on Okcoin. They purchase their first Avax. They're also staking it. How do you explain to them in very basic terms ways they can use that asset to now go into DeFi or go into the TOPS marketplace? I would love for you guys to elaborate on these two. And again, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Let me say a few words about identity, but I really want to say a whole lot about identity. I've thought about this for years. I watched as Civic came on board. I watched as other people just constantly went around the blockchain conference circuit and talked about online identities, self-sovereignty, self-sovereign IDs. And then for many years, I also watched just flabbergasted. I watched how the space made absolutely no progress. There has been so many, I've sat through so many panels and watched other people contemplate this whole issue. And yet I have seen not a tiny bit of progress on this front. So it's very clear to me that identity on the blockchain has to be decentralized at its core. It's very clear to me that there will be identity providers. It's very clear to me that we're gonna move to a model where people will be identity consumers and they need to make their own decisions. I think many people in this space have a very broken idea of some kind of an identity model that's being built into chains. Ava Labs will not be doing that. Okay, I will watch very gladly all my competitors do this. There are chains out there that require KYC AML to even join the chain. I think these are non-starters. I think those chains are destined to die. I think they're trying to do something that is correct for everyone. And one thing I know when it comes to identities is that you cannot have a single set of rules governing identities that will fit everybody. One size fits all fits no one. This is something that we have baked into our DNA on every front, but especially on the identity front. So my vision for identity is going to be something, or what we will unveil for identity is going to be something that allows every identity consumer, everybody who has to deal with who someone is, to come up with their own set of rules and with their own trust decisions on identity providers. So that's very, very crucial. And I know exactly how to do this. I have known this for about 5 years. The whole time I watched other people dance around this, but not a single group has been able to put it together yet. And we are a little busy at the moment, and we have a bunch of very exciting things on our plate. So identity has not been an issue that we've had to tackle immediately, so we don't have this already done, but we know exactly what to do technically. But I don't want to announce it right here, right now, because if I do, then we're also one of the most copied projects. So what I'm going to do is maybe cut it off right here and simply promise that in the coming months, we're going to see an identity solution on top of Avalanche that is easily the world's most flexible identity solution, easily the most decentralized version of identities with self-sovereignty built into the protocols from the ground up. And then I'll leave it there, and it's going to be a beautiful experience that is integrated with the wallet properly, so that people can essentially acquire credentials and expose them to consumers as they see fit. There's so much to do in this space. I worked on this just so that I'm not just talking about this in an empty fashion. I published academic works on this back in 2003. So this is not new technology from my perspective. This is just begging for the practitioners to take the ideas that were already explored by academics and render it into proper practice. And somehow a lot of the practitioners in this space are not well versed on what came before them, and they certainly don't know what came, any of the things that came before Satoshi. And there's a lot of work there. So rest assured, we remain at the very forefront of research. This is the most advanced system, as I mentioned before, and we have an identity solution in the works that I'm really excited about. But I don't want to go into the full details just yet because it's not ready for unveiling just yet. But I'm really excited, and it's going to come from us.
And I mean, thanks for answering that. That in itself is so insightful. So I'm glad you shared your vision and the background there. I think that really helps myself, and I'm sure the audience here, get a sense of what the complexities are and what we can expect. So thank you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think there are a lot of, you see, when you look at DeFi, you see the need for localization, right? You see the need for being able to selectively perform checks on people. We just saw Uniswap drop a whole bunch of tokens, and it's partly because they lack any other mechanism for accommodating what they want to accommodate. They're just like, I just can't handle this, and that's a sad state of affairs. And we want to address that head on. We want to provide all of the tooling required for DEXs, for lending platforms, and so forth, to perform the kinds of identity checks that they want to perform. And we are not going to be ramming any policy down anybody's throat. It should be entirely user-driven. When the Uniswap guys want X, then they should be able to get X. And when somebody else wants some Y, then they should be able to encode the policy for Y and implement it on the chain. So that's our vision. It has to be flexible and in the hands of the DeFi consumers. So anybody who starts out from any other perspective is destined to lose this game. And I've watched the whole space. Everybody in it has the wrong framework. They don't have a flexible enough idea of what constitutes identity management and identity consumption. They don't even have the right words for for specifying, like, these are credentials, and it's credential management is it's fairly straightforward, and it's just one of these things where you see the solution and no one else is getting to it. And I hope in the weeks and months to come that we're going to be one of the first ones there.
That's exciting, and also a huge tease. when do we expect to hear something from you guys about this? I'm really keen to read more.
I'm trying not to do a Justin Sun here and provide the teeth. I was gonna
announcement about announcements.
I was gonna say absolutely nothing, but then I thought that's not gonna be right. So at least let me share some of the guiding principles and at least the general form of the solution without necessarily jumping into the technology behind the solution. When we need it, and we're beginning to need some identity management. We're beginning to see compliant digital asset releases, and sometimes people need to figure out who the accredited investors are. Sometimes people need to figure out who's in the U.S. Sometimes they need to figure out who's not in the U.S. It depends on the consumers. So they typically what people have had to do is they do these checks offline. And they do these checks in a one time per application basis. Every application does it differently. I know every serious blockchain user has had to share their identity, their credentials with countless different consumers out there. And I'm so excited about just unveiling the technology that's going to essentially allow these applications to share a common framework. So that's the one thing I can't reveal. When it's ready is I think the only answer.
Sounds good. I do also know that there's a lot of DeFi stuff happening in the Avalanche ecosystem. Maybe Jay, you can walk us through what's coming up, and maybe a quick recap. Also.
Yeah, sure. And I think to echo Gun's excitement, we've been talking about this internally, and we really think this is truly the calm before the storm. I think everyone's going to be taking their summer holidays. The Avalabs team is very much heads down. Nothing's changed in terms of our conviction. And I think the first thing that we need to do is finalize the Lego pieces within DeFi. And so we have AMMs. Pangolin actually is one of the listeners on this call, it seems. So Pangolin's one of the leading horses in the race, at least in the Avalanche ecosystem. A lot of the following AMMs also saw a huge opportunity with instant or near instant finality and just low transaction fees, I think, to start. And from there, you got a lot of excitement. And I think with the advent of liquidity mining with SushiSwap also happens to be on Avalanche, by the way, then we were seeing a lot more excitement beyond just these newly launched DeFi projects, if you will. So we have, again, trying to fill out the remaining of the Lego pieces. And then once this bridge that Nick and his team has been working so hard on completing is out in public, I think we're going to see a lot of these people and projects who are sitting on the sidelines waiting for that kind of catalyst. The bridge is one. I think another really, really big integration that just went live, I think last week or the week before, is Chainlink. And for those who may not know Chainlink's role within the Avalanche ecosystem and other blockchain ecosystems, Chainlink brings in real-world price data first and foremost on chain. And this is something that a lot of projects have been asking for, because without something like Chainlink or Oracle's, broadly speaking, then they're not going to be able to function appropriately in the on-chain environment. So for us, I think the next probably quarter or two, you'll see a lot of leading DeFi projects coming on Avalanche. You'll also see new ones that I think will get people excited. And then don't want to also reveal too much, but Nick and his team are working on a lot of things to really minimize that gap. So I think Haider was talking about the user experience as it relates to Avax and the other Avalanche assets. How can someone get from Avalanche token or Avax all the way to a DeFi project? Well, right now, there are a few steps in between. We aim to minimize that. So like you interact with the, I guess, iOS or Android App Store, it'll be just as easy as that. You have the assets in your wallet, and you're going to be able to just a la carte experiment with whatever DeFi project you want. And we'll hand it over to Nick to kind of expand on that and other things in the pipeline.
So, I mean, it's such a great point that we really are focusing on trying to reduce the friction and create these smooth rails into the platform. We're doing that through things like the bridge, but we're also taking a complete look at the wallet. So we'll have a complete revision to the web wallet that allows for a much more user-friendly experience and the ease of ability to get Avax and really use it in the way the user wants to. We'll also be rolling out a mobile experience in the very near future, along with a browser extension that will really interact and integrate with the dApps in a very native way, again, to make transaction signing and security, a very good experience for the user. So those are a couple of the different ways we're doing it. We're also looking at trying to create these utilities or picks and shovels in the form of modules and smart contracts, and really make those available to our user base and the builder. So, the Chainlink price feeds is a good example. We're also going to integrate the VRF module. We're going to be offering crypto payments module. So if you're a project that wants to get up and get started and get building, there are these very common features that you don't have to start from scratch on. You'll be able to leverage on the work that the internal teams are doing within Avalabs, and hopefully go from 0 to 10 very quickly to get out to market.
Yeah, thank you guys. I should have mentioned the Chainlink integration earlier when I was summarizing what happened in the last month. It's absolutely crucial. That's a huge enabler for a lot of DeFi applications. There have been many other applications that were waiting on the sidelines, waiting for Chainlink to come in. And since that just happened, we have some exciting apps, dApps that are about to go live. I should mention Banky. That's something that was hung up on Chainlink. And now that that's been unblocked, we should see that on chain soon. And so it's a really exciting time with a lot of cool stuff. In addition to Banky, there will be many others and lending applications that are coming out. So DeFi is much, much larger than AMMs, of course, and I'm really excited about all these other DeFi apps that are to come online.
Yeah, and just to echo that, at least our feedback from our customers is that they've been looking for ways to access Avax on the C chain directly from us. So that's something that we are working on also on our side, really from user demand, right? And I don't know when we can announce this either, but it should be soon. So yeah, that's we're doing our part to make sure users can get as seamlessly as possible from their local currency into the Avax ecosystem, DeFi ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Gate.io. We have Gate.io OKX supporting Avalanche C chain, and Bitmart supporting Avalanche C chain. So, and I think we're going to see a lot more in terms of exchanges supporting Avax on the C chain directly, just because that's where a lot of people want to take their coins and interact directly with DeFi. So yeah, indeed, thank you guys. I'm really excited about that support, and it should make it a lot easier for the users.
Hey, I am curious. Would you think C chain should be the default or X chain should be the default?
Such a great question, and it's so deep. And so here's what I think. So the EVM is not how I would design it. So for the longest time, I consider myself a member of the Ethereum community. I happen to like what happened there. And for the longest time, I was a user of the EVM. And when we were implementing the C chain, I looked more carefully into it. And just about every micro decision that went into the design of the EVM is not a decision I would make. So it starts with the size of the words. 256-bit words are just way too big. They don't fit the natural word size on any actual computer. And then you name it, there's so many strange and questionable decisions that sacrifice performance. So, but then, the EVM is successful, and a lot of people are using it. Solidity compiles down to it naturally. And we were the very first chain to support the EVM. We were the very first decentralized chain to support the EVM and allow people to move their smart contracts onto a much faster chain with far lower fees. And so we love the C chain. But in the Avax vision, in the Avalanche vision, there is no such thing as a default this and that. There's a plurality. There's like a giant collection of different virtual machines. And do I think that the EVM will be with us? I don't know. Let's say 10 years from now, I would hope not. I would hope that we will have moved on to something far better, something much faster, something that it does not inherently slow down the implementation. So yeah, and you know what? You can't really do that on other chains unless you make fundamental, huge changes to their infrastructure. Whereas on Avalanche, they're just additional virtual machines. So you're really asking me to make a Sophie's choice. And for people who did not watch that amazing movie, that's a choice between a mother has to make between her son and her daughter. And I don't want to make that choice. I want us to support all of these chains, and I want us to support even more. So behind the scenes, I have support for a prototype of WASM. We have a WASM VM that isn't deployed yet, but we have that. And it also has its own issues because WASM has its own issues. And, maybe we'll design a new one, and maybe that's going to be the one that replaces all of these things because it's far cleaner, nicer, faster. So the sky's the limit. And, our idea is to accommodate everything and support whatever may come. It's essentially, let me just add this, it's essentially up to the users to pick the platform on which they want to deploy their applications. And so the C chain, the EVM is nice. It's incredibly nice, actually. And at the moment, it has a huge user base. And I suspect that better things will come along. And when they do, we are there to run along with those and support them as well.
Sounds good. That makes sense. We will take a look at the data, and then we'll circle back on this one. Let's see how it plays out in the next couple months.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And I know we're firing up a lot of questions at you guys. You guys are welcome to put us in the spotlight too if you want to ask any questions. I have one more, and team, which is there's such great development currently taking place at Ava Labs. How are developers reacting to this stuff, and what is the area they feel most excited about, where you're seeing a lot of good reception? I know it's a general question, but just trying to get a gauge of the overall developer sentiment as you guys evolve.
The bridge, that's the one thing that everybody's super excited about. So look, we had a bridge, and we've had it for some time, and it was all right, but it was expensive to use. Let's just face it. And it was slow and it was unreliable. And why was it slow and unreliable? Because it was doing things on the Ethereum chain. So to bring anything, essentially to do anything on either going from Ethereum to Avalanche or Avalanche to Ethereum. On the Avalanche side, things are relatively easy, but on the Ethereum side, it was a decentralized bridge. It still is a decentralized bridge. And then multiple entities had to submit Ethereum transactions, and then those transactions had to okay the transfers, etc., etc. It was slow. Occasionally fees would spike, and then of course there are safeguards on all of the bridge operators, and their transactions don't go in, and then suddenly the bridge is stuck for some time, etc. So the community was dealing with this expensive bridge. Since up to 5 people have to have an Ethereum transaction, and since it sometimes costs maybe $50 per transaction on ETH, so it costs sometimes $250 to get your assets on. It's super expensive. This new bridge technology is one that nobody else has. It's based on an entirely new infrastructure. It's based on trustless computing technology. And it's the way it presents itself on either side, on both Ethereum and Avalanche initially. The way it presents itself is there's just an address. You send your money there, and your money pops out at an address on the other side. So all you have to do is just do one transfer, and it's essentially immediate. There is no, you don't have to wait for this, that, or the other. The fees are incredibly modest. They should cost on the order of 1 ETH transaction. or if you're going the other way, or just one Avalanche transaction. So once that happens, I think that greatly simplifies the flow of existing coins into Avalanche, and this was one of the main things that the developers were pushing for. A second thing that developers have mentioned is dynamic fees. So at the moment, Avalanche fees are set in terms of Avax, and that's okay. But what can happen, and this hasn't actually happened, but it's something that was essentially kind of causing some stress for me, was that if there is a gazillion transactions per second happening on Avalanche, if the fees can go up, then that will tend to push back on the load that's being put on the system. But if you don't have fees that are going up, then what you can have, or what you do have, is when load goes up, then some transactions will be dropped. And which ones are going to be dropped? Well, the system just picks randomly because it doesn't know what's good and what's bad, etc. It doesn't have any notion of what to drop. So that's not an ideal solution, because people will get the users will get upset. So dynamic fees is a very important feature. It's coming very, very soon, and that allows the system to shed off the economically less viable transactions as load goes up. And so those two were quite big, and they're big enablers for a lot of applications to come. And they're coming, and the bridge is already live at some address. I think it's maybe not publicly announced yet, but will be soon. And the dynamic fees update is coming soon as well, and we're very excited about what is to come there.
And maybe I can add a little bit on the community side here, at least from the developer's perspective, and from I guess probably the beginning of this year all the way up to this point, really just on a crazy sprint. I think there hasn't been this much work done, I think, in a while in the space, if I can be as bold to say so myself, especially across all functions. And what we've been doing, at least on the marketing community side, is making sure that all of the materials are up to speed for people who are in the blockchain development cohort, people who understand blockchain in the marketing context, bottom of the funnel, because those are the closest to you as customers, if you will. I think this next phase is really to go from this concept of zero to Avalanche. Right now, when you have developers, a lot of people come across Bitcoin, and then they move on to other projects that are close by, and then they look farther down the line, and that's kind of the journey right now. And we truly believe that if we put enough support, at least on the materials perspective, also maximize the user experience like we talked about with Nick, and then make sure that we have the proper incentives in line, and making sure that it really is a no-brainer to pick an ecosystem like Avalanche, then you have really happy developers. That's kind of the simple way to put it. And even looking at the spaces now, we have so many technical individuals, both on the Ava Labs team and the wider community. Pangolin, Colin, I see Colin, Connor, Dan, Michael. I think the list goes on. May have forgotten a few people as I'm scrolling down. But in any case, everyone's active in the community and has a lot to offer. People are just simply, and Pangolin too, people are simply passionate about this stuff, whether or not we have professions in them. And I think most of us can agree. We have kind of this air of nerdiness, if you will, where we just want to push the bounds of what's to come. So I think, to recap, not only do we want to conquer the blockchain developer cohort, but also just the newcomers. And the next few quarters, like with most things that we're talking about, will be very, very essential, especially with hackathons and also other collaborations we can have with dev-focused tooling, and such as Chainlink is one example that we named.
Jay, and we're with you on that mission. I think we want to help where we can. I think we will participate with you guys, and I want to tease up one quick thing without any exact dates, but I do want to confirm for everyone listening here, we are going to integrate and complete that integration with C-Chain. I think it will probably be announced in the next few days. So that's exciting. And then we want people to explore this, the use of it. And what we're going to do is launch a very small incentive campaign, all with the idea that people come in and they have a reason to come and explore and try it for themselves and see the value. So please keep a lookout on Twitter. We'll be announcing that over the next few days, and excited to roll out that program that we've been working really closely with the Ava Labs team on.
Haider, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to hear this. This is fantastic. So actually flipping the sort of the mic to you, here's a question for you guys. So once the Avax C chain support is complete, then you're going to be in prime position to support other coins issued on the Avalanche C chain. So and we have a lot of projects coming online in the next weeks and months. And so what's your take, and how do you view this whole listing process? We would love to have our newly issued dApps on top of Avalanche listed on all the big, nice exchanges that are trustworthy.
Yeah, look, I'll answer it from just putting a caveat out there that, of course, we have a compliance and legal team, and I'm not part of that team. But we work pretty closely, and I think I have a good sense of what they recommend to us in terms of evaluation and the overall process. Now, with that being said, there's a huge appetite at Okcoin to go and explore and create experiences that are very forward-thinking and are truly crypto native, but do so in a way that the UX and the entry points are just very usable for even the novices. So in summary, the way I would answer that question is, we have a huge appetite. And point us in the right direction, and we'll be exploring ourselves. And then we will get very aggressive about making sure that we open up those markets. Now, the process, because we are a centralized exchange, and that's sort of like, it comes with like a bad connotation oftentimes. The value of a centralized exchange, at least ones that are established in the United States and offer services globally, is that we have local currency on-ramps. So rather than having to go through MetaMask and buy DAI and go through a bunch of DEXs, you can just come to Okcoin, use ACH or your debit card or wire, fund your account, and get into these ecosystems in a matter of clicks. So in order for us to do that, we'd have a really robust compliance process. Now, as long as an asset or a new listing hasn't done an ICO, there aren't any favorable mechanics for the founders or the early teams, and they pass the Howey test, I think the new listings are a very fair game. And I think Okcoin, what you're going to see is we're going to go and experiment with new assets coming in and doing audacious things on top of promising chains and ecosystems. So in summary, we're all about it. Hopefully the assets you recommend and the ones we identify and run by you guys are compliance friendly, meaning they haven't done any ICOs and things of that nature. And then you'll start to see those markets open up, and we're going to be very urgent in bringing those to market.
Let me just add one quick thing. Gun, that's a good question, because I can reveal that we have already been doing our homework and looking out for potential opportunities there. So that's exciting. But like Haider said, if there's opportunity where you think we're missing or something should be brought to our attention, we're also always out there listening and engaging with the community to learn more. So please come at us with suggestions.
Thank you both. Go ahead.
And I mean, I think for people listening in, we've been really having a hard thought about, hey, how do we demonstrate and bring unique value? We can't just be another exchange. There's a lot of choice out there, and one area where we felt really passionate, again, making sure that it passes compliance reviews, just like Avax did. We want to be the first exchange to bring these really promising ecosystems and assets to market. It just coincidentally has happened that U.S. investors get left behind. The global markets open up first, because of regulatory reasons and limitations, and then the U.S. customer is the last one to get access to these compelling assets. And oftentimes it can feel like it's a little too late. So what we've been doing, if you look at Stacks, we were the first exchange to list Stacks 2.0, first exchange to enable stacking, first exchange to list Avax and stacking, now very recently Near. So I think you're going to keep seeing that rhythm from us, which is, hey, if there are promising ecosystems with strong development teams, behind it and strong founders such as yourself, we want to make sure that we're on the forefront of that.
Thank you both. That was an amazingly insightful answer, and I also know all of the sort of the hard regulatory requirements that you guys have to deal with as a U.S. entity. So it's one of the many reasons why your exchange is as trustworthy as it is. On the other hand, it also constrains you guys. It's fantastic to hear with such candor that you guys are devoted to doing this right and highlighting the innovative, cool projects. And we are grateful that you were indeed the very first to list Avax in the U.S. and incredibly proud to be of the community here, incredibly proud to be allied with you guys. And I think everybody knows, you can sense this. When I talk to people, I encounter two different kinds of people. Those who are trying to advance the state of the space, and people who are just there to, get by, do their own business, that are self-oriented. And it's so nice to hear this sentiment from you guys. We're so excited to work with you and put the highlight on all the great dApps that we know of that hopefully will go through the compliance process and get listed. It's just this is a fantastic opportunity and a fantastic partnership.
I think I'm excited about the work that Jay and the marketing team is going to do with us. We went through the first foundational phases, which is list Avax, introduce Avax support or stacking support, integrate C-chain. Now the cool part that we're going to work together on is how do we get people to be more familiar than just opening up a position and holding stacks or holding Avax rather. I apologize. And I think that's a really important task that we take a huge responsibility for, which is educating people on the ecosystem utilities. And there are a ton here. And I think that's going to be the exciting next phase for Jay and the larger team, even here at Okcoin, from a marketing point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a lot of education, just generally a lot of education to do, both with people in positions of, in policy-making positions about the DeFi space and so forth, and also with our user communities as well. We want everybody to take advantage of DeFi. The returns in the last year have been fantastic there. The opportunities are amazing. And people should be able to experiment with, interact with these cool smart contracts that are coming out.
Yeah, no, and I think this part two that we did was super educational. I think there's tons of exciting things going on with Avalanche, with the Chainlink mainnet integration, new Avalanche Bridge, Tops Bazooka, Joe's NFTs, and there's just so much more coming. And, I think we're coming close up on time. But I just have one last question for you, Yoon. I actually noticed how unique your Twitter handle was, and I was just wondering kind of what that means exactly.
Okay, the Elite Hacksaw Twitter handle. It's meant to be in jest. Back in the day, I'm totally dating myself, but back in the 80s, there was this whole hacker community. So by now, the word hacker has been co-opted by mainstream media. It means something bad, but back in the day, it meant something great. It meant cool people who were who knew computers and who knew how to write code, and they would also mess with telecommunication systems and so forth. And then they would share what little knowledge they had about comm systems, how to break into AT&T systems, etc., with each other on these hacker forums. And they had a special way of speaking and writing things that got co-opted by the gaming community to some extent later on. But so, yeah, my name goes back all the way back to those days. And, you don't write E's, you write them with threes unless they're at the beginning of a word. And then, L's are ones, etc. I don't know why it is that way. It's just the way it was. It's just, and the thing that everyone aspired to was to become an elite hacker, or an elite hacksaw as it's spelled by hackers back in the day. So that's when I got it. I was like a 15-year-old kid or whatever. First time on the internet, when the internet was I don't know what it was like, just a bunch of websites and BBSs. I was actually on BBSs, and the internet and Bitnet were just in their formative stages. So anyway, so it goes back to that. It means elite hacker. I'm not actually claiming to be an elite hacker. It's just I wanted to be one, and then I was like, I remembered my whatever. It's a send off to my old, well, not old, but to my younger self. And I don't know, I picked it and then I stuck with it. Then I became a professor and I thought, hey, it's going to be so cool to call myself an elite haxor. And so yeah, well, I used it as my personal handle. And at some point, I kind of just broke down the wall. I got rid of using my Cornell email. I couldn't. Universities started doing funky things, like they started monitoring their users' emails. Harvard did it first. And then I thought, okay, I can't trust Cornell to not do that. And I decided to use my personal account for everything. And then the Elite Haxor handle got leaked out, and now I've got it. And I'm very happy with it. There's another person, though, who's taking up Elite Haxor on a bunch of different forums. So not all Elite Haxors are me. So a whole bunch of other people are also Elite Haxors. So I share, whatever it is, I don't share it. But like they've on some platforms, I have the right one. On some others, I have it with it's not an O instead of a 0 and so forth. And it's funny stuff from a long time ago.
Yeah, I love that. The usernames that we kind of pick on early on just stick with us throughout our entire lives. And so super interesting and fun with that. But again, thank you, Goon, Nick, and Jay for joining us again for this part 2. Before we close this out, do you guys have any last minute closing thoughts?
Well, I'd like to thank you all for putting this together. It's always fun to talk to you guys. Really, really thrilled to hear from you, your devotion, your commitment to doing a thorough review, and then when coins pass that review, to list them. That's really great to hear. Really, really promising for the space overall. And let's see, for our community at large, I think the messaging is clear. We are out here innovating. We're not here to sit on our laurels. We're not here to close down the platform. We're out here constantly pushing the boundary of what is possible with blockchains, constantly showing the world that things that they believe that blockchains could not do are very much possible. So I'm really thrilled about everything that we've done so far. I'm really thrilled about how far we've come. We're not even a year old, and yet here we are, the very first chain to create a decentralized EVM, the very first chain to attract a lot of TVL, the very first chain to introduce proof of stake to the EVM. And there are a whole bunch of other things that we did. We did POS on EVM far before Ethereum. Those guys are still working on doing that for yet another year. And the very first chain to burn coins. There's so much more that we've done, and yet there is far more to come. I'm really excited about the pace of innovation on Avalanche. I'm really, really excited, of course, about the community. It's growing strong, and you can see when I talk that I'm not even in command of the latest, greatest things happening on top. It's just so big and it's so far beyond me that I'm absolutely thrilled about how far the whole system has come, and of course how far the community has come. So thank you all very, very much for following along with us on this great journey to prove to the world that blockchains can attract and hold a lot of value, and that they don't suffer from these limitations and restrictions that people have come to accept because they just didn't see any better. So the speed, the latency issues that other coins have, we don't have. Throughput issues, we don't have. Decentralization problems, we don't have. We have 1,000 validators on the network today, and that number is going to go up as soon as we reduce the minimum staking requirements with governance. So there's a lot of exciting things happening, and I'm thrilled about it. One request I have of our community is this. We're going to see, I think, a bunch of coins, and we're beginning to see this already, that are thoroughly centralized. And yet they have the accoutrements. They sound like other blockchain projects. They have an API, kind of like a blockchain, or they call themselves a smart contract platform, or they maybe even support the EVM, but in reality, they are just a centralized thing that runs a smart contract. I would like our users to educate the world on the difference between centralized solutions and decentralized solutions. We would not be here today if this entire operation could have been done by centralized solutions. What the heck is Bitcoin about if it were to be centralized? It's a stupid little token. Well, right now, today, there are a whole bunch of people out there making noise as if what they've got is a competitor to decentralized solutions. And when I say this, I even include some layer 2s. A lot of layer 2s are thoroughly centralized. A lot of layer 1s are thoroughly centralized. And the world needs to understand that these things are imposters. They're kind of like the cuckoo bird in the nest, growing alongside the other deserving babies. And the cuckoo, if you don't notice what you're doing, it can outgrow and it can start pushing the babies out of the nest. And so our job is to say, yo, look, this thing, it doesn't really, it might look at this current stage kind of like the other ones if you squint and don't look hard enough. But if you look deep down underneath the skin, if you look at its DNA, it's thoroughly different. It's not one of our babies. It did not bring us here. It will not take us out of here. It does not share with us the most centralized, most precious value we all have, which is decentralization. Layer 2s are essentially a centralization game. BSC and other coins like that are essentially a centralization game. Yes, maybe you can get a few dollars here and there, but are you going to really give up on the thing that matters most? So that education has to happen. And if I may part tonight, with one message, that would be to ask very gently and respectfully of our community to educate the world on what the difference is between decentralized solutions and their centralized lookalikes. Those two things are not the same, and we, I think, should understand that one is in every way better than the others. Anyhow, I'm gonna stop there and maybe turn it over to Jay and Nick.
Really excited for the summer, like I said before. So I think things will be awesome. And stay tuned for those things that we've been alluding to, especially those that we were a little bit abstracting just because of the public-private nature of things. And I think the summer will be fantastic for Avalanche. And moving forward, we'll see a lot of cool things in the DeFi realm come together.
Yeah, I just want to echo those sentiments as well. And thanks for having us. And we have such a talented team, and they've been heads down working so hard. And there's just a lot of innovation right around the corner. And we're really excited to deliver it out to the community.
For sure, and it's always a pleasure to have you guys, for this part 2. And this hour just blasted by again. Maybe we might have a part 3 in the future. But, again, always a pleasure to have you guys join us. And thank you for everyone participating and listening in. If you guys want to connect with any of the speakers through their socials, feel free to. And for any of the people coming in late, we'll have like a stage for all these users, and you guys can listen in on. But again, thank you guys for all coming in, and it's a pleasure to have you guys.
Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.